Now, what is the language and speech? What is the speech? Language, it is the method of communication. Like we are able to communicate through English language here. That is the method of communication. What is speech? Speech is the one which is the ability of a person to articulate sounds. We are able to produce sounds and speak to others. So that is the ability to express thoughts by articulate sounds. So language can be verbal also, can be written also. If whatever I'm saying, you are able to listen it and you are able to understand it. That is the verbal language. And for a written language, we need some reading and writing. So verbal language involves the spoken language and hearing. The person hears the sound and he can speak back. So spoken and hearing. Whereas written, it is for reading and writing. Most of you know the common areas for this. That is the Wernicke's and Wernicke's and Broca's area. But I will tell you some additional areas which could be the potential MCQs. So we have to remember the additional areas also. Since now they are bored with Wernicke's and Broca's, so they might switch on to the next ones. So this is the diagram of the brain. This is the frontal lobe, and the behind we have the occipital lobe. So for any learning, any stimulus, we should have an auditory stimulus like spoken language, or we should be able to visualize it and write it. So visual is also involved. So what are the other two areas, most important areas involved? That is the auditory areas and visual areas. Visual areas are present in the occipital cortex. So area number 7 is primary visual area. And area number 18 and 19 is secondary visual area. So these are the most important areas. So once the impulse is received it, then there are some language and speech areas specifically which will get activated. Now these are the most important ones. One area is located here just above the temporal lobe, that is area number 22, which is called as Wernicke's area. This area is considered as the most advanced part in the human brain. Even though our frontal lobe size is more in comparison with the lower animals, but language and speech is the one which has brought the human evolution to these levels. And the area which is very much involved in this is the Wernicke's area, most advanced area of brain. Guyton clearly writes that it is the most predominant area in the brain which is involved in the development of human knowledge. Then another area which number is 44 and 45. All of you know this. One is the Wernicke's, another one is Broca's area. So these two are the major areas. All of you know this. And they are connected by the arcuate fasciculus. Arcuate fasciculus. Now I will tell you about two more additional areas. Please remember these two additional areas. One is the number 39, which is called as angular gyrus. This is called as angular gyrus. I will tell you all the importance of these areas. And it is also called as digerine area. Digerine area. Then there is one more area which is located very close to that of the Broca's area, which is called as Exner's area. So all these four areas I want you to remember: Wernicke's area, Broca's area, Exner's area, and angular gyrus or the Digerine's area. All four are important. So what is the importance of this? Suppose language is of two types. Some spoken language, suppose somebody is speaking, it has to be understood. It has to go to the auditory area. Then finally it will go to the Wernicke's area. W for Wernicke. From the Wernicke through the arcuate fasciculus, it goes to the Broca's. Then it will go to the motor cortex. Then the person can speak. So speak back or reply back. So this is the cycle for a spoken language. But for a written language, it is little more complicated. Written language, we have to bring in two more areas. Written language, first the person has to visualize. So visual cortex is involved. From the visual cortex, it has to go to the primary and secondary visual areas. From the visual areas, it will go to the first it will go to the angular gyrus, then to the Wernicke, then to the Wernicke's. From the Wernicke's, as usual, it will go to the Broca's area. It doesn't stop here. Now we are not able, wanted to produce the words. We want to write it back. You are taking the notes. You want to see it and take the notes. So you want to write back. So Broca's will give the impulse to Exner's area, and it will go to the motor cortex for coordinating the hand movements. Now we need the hand movements. So what is the difference between these two tracks? Here the major Wernicke's and Broca's are only involved. Here there is an addition of angular gyrus as well as the exness area. So for a written language, we need both the angular gyrus and the exness area. So this is the difference between these two. So now coming to role of cortical areas. Now we have understood there are four areas which is required. So we can basically divide these four areas into receptive area and executionary area. Otherwise, we can say sensory area, motor area, and receptive area versus the executionary areas. So the Wernicke's and angular gyrus, they are trying to understand it and comprehend it. So they are called as receptive or sensory area. So the Wernicke's area, I told you, it is located in the temporal lobe. It works along with the auditory system, auditory area, and it is understanding the speech. But Dijerin's area, it is in the inferior parietal lobe and it is involved in the perception of written word. Written word, I told you, there is a requirement for angular gyrus. Even though Wernicke's is involved, still angular gyrus is also involved, one additional area. Then coming to the Broca area, it is for the motor speech area. Word formation can be done and regulation of muscles of articulation, like word movement and movement of the mouth and everything can be done. Then coming to the exness area, it is located in the frontal lobe, just very next to the Broca's area, and it is for the motor writing with the help of hand coordinations. Now coming to the defects in this, the diseases, what happens whenever there is a lesion to this Wernicke's area or the Broca's area. These are the two major areas which will be asked in MCQs. What happens for these areas? Aphasia means it is the disorder in a language and speech centers. So whenever there is a Wernicke's area is affected, now think of yourself. I told you Wernicke's is for the sensory. So sensory aphasia, it is also called as sensory aphasia. It is also called as receptive aphasia. But if the Wernicke is affected, tell me Broca is fine. So can he speak fluently? Yes, the person will speak. He is not understanding it, but word production, will it be there or not? It will be there. That is called as fluent aphasia. So this person will talk meaninglessly. He will keep on talking. He will be able to produce multiple words, but it will not have hold any meaning. So that's why it is called a sensory receptive or fluent aphasia. So comprehension of both the written as well as the spoken language is gone. That is why it has two beautiful terms which is called as word blindness. The subject will be able to see the word. Don't think it is the blindness of the eye, but he'll not be able to make meaning out of it. And word deafness. So both will be there, word blindness and word deafness. And the subject will produce new words also, which is called as neologism. Neologism. And he'll salad the words and talk. That is called as word salad. And if any sentence is given where the subject is speaking, suppose any sentence is given and in 1 minute he is able to speak multiple sentences but without any meaning, then go for a Wernicke's area or Wernicke's aphasia. The Broca's aphasia is just opposite of it. What is Broca's aphasia? It is also called as expressive aphasia. The person is not able to express. Here the Wernicke will be completely fine. So he will be able to understand it. Suppose if I ask you, what is your name? His Wernicke is understood it. But right now he will not be able to reply it, but because his motor is not intact. So he will be like, my. So he will give a lot of pauses in between his speech. To complete one sentence, he will take around 3 to 5 minutes also, because there will be lot of multiple pauses and gaps in between that. But here this understanding will be preserved. So comprehension is preserved. Expressive, motor or non-fluent, because now the Broca's is gone, he cannot talk fluently. So that is called as the non-fluent aphasia. And there is a special term for this kind of staggered speech which is called as telegraphic speech. Telegraphic speech. If any sentence is given and there are less number of words with multiple passes or something like that, then it is a Broca's aphasia. They can give you a statement where there are similar passes and they will need write the timings below, which is like 3 minutes or something. He has talked nothing fruitful, like there are long pauses in between his speech. That is called as Broca's aphasia. And there is something called as global aphasia where multiple areas can be involved. And there is something called as transcortical aphasia also, like specific cortical connections can be affected. So all these kinds of aphasias can be there, but the major ones are Wernicke's and Broca's.